Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
Good morning, St. Kitts and Nevis, and welcome to another edition of Inside the News. I'm Jermaine Abel, sitting in this week on Inside the News. It has been a very busy news week here in St. Kitts and Nevis and across the region and internationally. We had Culturama that wrapped up this week on Monday and Tuesday. We also had the People's Action Movement holding their press conference, giving their report card on the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration's 1 year in office since we had that elections. We also saw regionally the Antigua girls. They actually achieved their success again in terms of rowing across the waters. And then we also saw that the Antigua mother and daughter duo actually went to space, creating a lot of history there. And, that again is a really good accomplishment, as it actually put Antigua and Barbuda on the map, but also the Caribbean. So as usual, when I'm sitting in the hot seat here on Inside the News, we try to go beyond the politics and actually, get to the story, get to the root of every problem here in St. Kitts and Nevis, right? So we don't talk, well, at least I try not to get to the political side of things. We try to get to the root, get people to understand the issues in a very systematic and understanding manner for the layman on the street. So now we will begin the discussion this morning on the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration's 1 year in office. They've been indicating, because the Prime Minister was on a number of radio stations recently, giving his assessment of the achievements of the party over the last year. I know for a couple of weeks ago he was on here as well, underscoring some of the achievements and the points and changes that the administration has made since they have taken office. Well, you can share your thoughts, your grade point, what you think they can do, what they haven't done, what they've been dragging their feet on. Yes, that's our assessment this morning. But before we take any calls or open the lines, I want to play the leader of the People's Action Movement, Sean Richards, giving his assessment of the 1 year anniversary of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration, the Dr. Drew-led administration. And the People's Action Movement gave the Labour Party a D to an F in their assessment, which is a bit harsh, but that's their assessment of it. I mean, they've done a lot. They've not given the information that we expected. They've been talking about a number of investigations, many of which they've only mentioned, and some of the findings, and as Dr. Drew said, some of them are still ongoing. But the question is, why release the information, pieces of the information, and not necessarily the full information surrounding the outcomes of these investigations? We keep hearing about this quote-unquote $20+ million that has disappeared from Development Bank, but we, especially those in the media, have not been able to corroborate some of what is being said. And note, I'm not saying that anybody's lying, but we prefer to have the facts to back up those statements. right? Because, we dissect all the information and actually, provide the data and all of that to the public so that the public can better understand exactly what is happening. But we have not been able to get those documents. The Attorney General, I know for sure, because the Media Association has been in discussions for quite some time since prior to the Labour Party administration taking office about updating the Freedom of Information legislation, and that was actually passed in the House, but we're not sure if it has been officially gazetted just yet. So we have all of that and more to that the Labour Party administration has done. And I know a lot of people have been talking about the construction of the Bastyr High School and a whole array of issues that would have come up under that the Labour Party administration promised, but they have not yet fulfilled, especially those that they promised to get fulfilled within the first 90 days, 60 to 90 days. And the leader of the People's Action Movement, Sean Richards, actually spoke about a number of those issues in his assessment earlier this week at a press conference about the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration. So we will hear from Sean, and then we'll come right back and continue the discussion here.
1 year and 5 days after the last general elections in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis, the People's Action Movement, PAM, has come today to publicly examine and discuss the performance of the present government, the Labour administration, and to award a grade that truly reflects the level of their stewardship over the past year. We deem this our patriotic duty as a responsible opposition party at the vanguard of monitoring the proper management and administration of the people's business. Governance is serious business. It is fundamentally about taking responsible action that is in the best interests of those whom you have sworn to lead and to serve. Essentially, good governance is about executing the plan, walking the talk. Our assessment of this administration's stewardship therefore will be based on the extent to which they have been able to deliver, on their promises, many of which they vowed to deliver or be well on their way to delivering in their first year in office. From listening to the many ordinary citizens and residents who have spoken to us in the streets, aired their disappointments and utter frustration on the talk shows and other media platforms, those who organize in the bars at the ferry terminal and around the country over the sluggish economy, those who went over the fence to their neighbors, it is clear that from all walks of life, people's anxiety and delusion are real, and their voices of condemnation are growing louder and stronger day by day, especially those who were enticed to vote for this government in the 2022 elections. 1 year in, and the chickens have already come home to roost. We have all come to the full realization that this inept, incompetent regime does not have the wherewithal to govern. 1 year on, and they are still desperately searching for the formula on how to deliver on their own promises. Never mind the brave faces they're trying to put on in public. They know that they have fallen woefully short in just about every category on the rating scale. From the housing fiasco, with not even one model house to show to date, to the unresolved water woes, to the lack of support for farmers, to the spiraling cost of living, they are fully aware that they have been weighed in the balance and have been found wanting. People are fed up because we are the ones bearing the brunt of their failures. their gross incompetence, their mismanagement, and their many unfulfilled promises. In the interest of time, I'll drill down on a few critical areas in which they have failed the good citizens and residents of our beloved country. Crime. Over the last 12 months, we have seen a frightening upsurge in serious crime compared to 5 short years ago. Statistics will confirm that not too long ago, under the Team Unity government, of which PAM was a majority party, the top 3 criminal offenses of murder, wounding, and robbery were on the decline. From 2018, homicides in St. Kitts and Nevis had been steadily decreasing from 23 in 2018 down to 11 in 2022. Today, under this Labor administration, after the first half of 2023, the number stands at 19, almost a staggering 50% increase over the 2022 figures, with 5 months left in the year. The sad irony is that several of the murder victims in 2023 were residents of constituency number 8, the Prime Minister's constituency, and not even that seemed important enough to stir him or his government into taking serious action. 5 years ago, robberies were down from 69 in 2018 to 38 in 2022. In fact, in 2021, the figure was as low as 17, the lowest for the period under review. Having looked at these statistics, it is fair to conclude that the programs instituted by the former administration to stem the tide of criminal activities, they were indeed effective and directly impacted the downward trend I just spoke to. Now, no one is claiming that those programs were perfect. There's always room for reform and improvement. Equally, no one can deny that they were very effective in greatly reducing the numbers of murders and other serious criminal activity that for years under the previous Labor administration had plagued our communities and left us cowering in fear and anxiety like prisoners in our own homes. Over the last 12 months, this new Labor administration has systematically dismantled and eroded the very initiatives which were so effective in curbing criminal activity just 5 years ago. The result? A return to the dark times when murders and mayhem ruled the day. Once again, business operators are left to the mercy of brazen robbers who terrorize them at gunpoint. Once again, we are being subjected to the general lawlessness and jungle justice of the past, with 2 and 3 murders in one day. Once again, we are mourning and crying and burying our young people. Once again, we are all in the death grip of crime, violence, and despair. We are left to wonder then, is this the sad legacy of Labor? Given this worrisome dilemma, we must hold this government accountable. They must be able to explain how in a few short months, they have managed to wipe out all of the gains made with regard to law and order. We therefore pose some serious questions and demand urgent answers, as law and order is a bedrock pillar of a resilient, stable, and sustainable future. In opposition, you criticized the peace program. But 1 year later, where is the promised formula, the reforms for a more streamlined and efficiently managed program? If they exist, why is it taking so long to implement them? Is law and order even a priority for this government? This government was hasty and premature in halting the peace program, in effect, throwing out the baby with the bathwater. Why discontinue a program that was obviously working if you have nothing concrete with which to replace it? Wouldn't it have made more sense to gradually phase out the program that you claimed was problematic while gradually phasing in the new, more effective program, if indeed such a program even exists and is ready to be implemented? The public has heard in the last few weeks of a program called Elevate, but as has become the norm, nobody seems to have any real details about how the program is to be administered, who will be managing the program, and who will benefit from the intervention. Why the secrecy? Is Elevate just another labor concoction, some half-baked scheme that we will all soon realize is not fit for purpose? Or worse yet, is it the usual routine, enough talk, distraction, and promises? While this government continues to filibuster, to engage in trial and error, to gallivant across the globe, and to look for ways to sidestep and avoid the citizens and residents whom they have pledged to serve, among them the very people who elected them to office, PAM will continue to expose their lies and incompetence and to demand urgent answers to these and other critical questions. We understand that time is of the essence, that lives and livelihoods literally hang in the balance, and that there is no real progress and prosperity without peace. I now turn to health. On the matter of health, our main hospital has borne the brunt of much criticism over the last several months. Lack of basic resources and equipment, the questionable quality of care given to patients, promotion of inexperienced personnel who are out of their depth with the management of a health institution, demoralized and underappreciated staff, to name but a few. Instead of addressing these troubling matters, what do we hear from the powers that be? The Prime Minister's repetitious chorus of "we are building a climate-smart hospital," a red herring to divert attention away from the multiple cross-cutting issues plaguing the JNF. This government's theme song is "Soon Come." The solutions for crime, water woes, housing, increase in minimum wage, promised solutions in the transport sector. For a whole year, their refrain has been, "It's soon come." Well, the farmers have shown that they are tired of the same old recitation, Minister Duggins. Minister Maynard, the transportation providers are saying they too are tired of the soon come recitation. These people are not infants. They refuse to be bamboozled and strung along with your fancy words and catchphrases. They want action, not a bag of mouth. So, someone needs to put the Honorable Prime Minister on notice that even while he plans for the construction of a fancy state-of-the-art hospital, he still has an obligation to the people as the Minister of Health to maintain systems and services that actively cater to current health needs and realities. He still has to address the burning issues of the day, personal and otherwise, that are impacting healthcare delivery throughout the Federation. On that note, we have heard that this government recently acquired 50 new dialysis machines, which are said to be Care 94 machines. I am further informed that they are yet to be commissioned as they are outdated. Imagine PAM in unity purchased Care 96 machines, and now this government is taking us back to outdated machines. Will these recently acquired Care 94 machines be among the equipment at the new state-of-the-art facility? My party was part of a Team Unity government which upgraded the satellite hospitals at Sandy Point and Molineux, as we deemed it important to ensure that these hospitals had the wherewithal to save lives if there were an emergency in the nearby communities. Even with the advent of a climate-smart hospital, in the interim, the JNF as well as these satellite facilities must continue to be upgraded, efficiently staffed and equipped so that patients, whether in Bastille or in communities miles away from Bastille, will continue to receive the optimal care that they deserve. We must not become so giddy and consumed with the prospect of a new hospital that we neglect our current obligations to the good and deserving people of this federation. With that in mind, I am aware that there was to be a phase 3 of the development plans by Team Unity, of which the People's Action Movement was a part, to include a new psychiatric unit, a central store, a mortuary, a pathology lab, kitchen, cafeteria, staff daycare center, ICU, a new dialysis unit, an MRI unit, isolation, infection unit, etc. Will these be some of the elements incorporated into the planned new hospital? If so, while we await the new hospital, for which no start or end date has been given, and which is likely to take at least 2 to 4 years to be fully operational, how will the government address the JNF Central Supply Storage Unit matter, specifically with items currently being stored on crates in a back room? Additionally, as mentioned earlier, to date, no start and end dates have been given for this much touted state-of-the-art health facility. We all know that the Labour government is notorious for breaking ground for big projects like the La Valley Golf Course and not delivering. Where are the designs and when will they be shared with the public, especially given the fiasco of the Trinidad housing scheme? Have or will local contractors be invited to bid? What is the long-term plan for the current Joseph Nathaniel France Hospital, named after a stalwart of your Labour Party? Will it be rehabilitated and continue to serve its original purpose? Or perhaps a satellite health facility? Or will it be completely renamed and repurposed? What of ongoing human capacity development to prepare our people to deliver the various services? Whatever the plans over the next few years, we must all be guided by the old adage which states, if you move a pig to a palace, the pig does not become a king, but the palace most definitely will become a sty. Dr. Joe, more than anyone else, should know that a hospital is much more than a fancy building equipped with climate-smart technology and modern equipment. Immediate action is therefore required now to improve the work environment at the JNF and to resolve the other pressing issues, infrastructural and otherwise, that are hampering the delivery of optimal care. Dr. Joe, the present and future of an efficient, resilient, and progressive health sector lies in your hands now. Continued promises of a climate-smart hospital will not absolve you of that sacred responsibility.
People make the world go
round. There you had it. That was an excerpt of leader of the People's Action Movement, Sean Richards, during a press conference earlier this week, giving his assessment on the 1-year anniversary of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration led by Dr. Terence Drew. Well, he really had some strong criticisms there, and he really gave his views on those, on the 1 year and some of the work that they would have done, some of the plans that they would have outlined. But at this point, we'll come right back and continue the discussion on Inside the News in terms of getting your views of the 1-year anniversary of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration and what they would have done and your expectations over the next 4 years or thereabout. But we have to acknowledge our partners who make this program possible, TDC and Carib Brewery.
50,000?
$50,000? Win big with TDC! Win up to $50,000 cash in the TDC Mega Rewards Mega Raffle! To enter, you must be a Mega Rewards member or sign up to TDC Mega Rewards Loyalty Program. Shop at our TDC retail stores or online at shoptdcgroup.com to receive one entry for every $250 spent. Draws take place from July to November. Win $10,000 every month with your entry rolled over so you can win, and win even more.
Yes, this is 50.
Terms and conditions apply.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
Welcome back to Inside the News here on Win FM. I'm Jermaine Abel, just sitting in today in the hot seat here on Inside the News. We're taking a deeper look at, and we're trying to assess the 1 year since the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration took office here in St. Kitts and Nevis, following what we saw transpired last year with the government of the day. It basically collapsed under a lot of internal wrangling. And that was happening. That was a build-up for several months, I guess, from the start of the administration back in 2015 to what transpired last year. I don't think it needs rehashing, because a lot of it we knew what transpired last year and then what led up to the general elections, where the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party had swept into office 4-6-5 to a Nevis 3 and St. Kitts. So based on that, they formed the government here, and it has been just about a year, just over a year since the administration took office, led by Dr. Terence Drew. And, during the elections, a manifesto would have been given and promises made by all parties, but the winner, the winning party would be the ones to implement what they would have, what plans they would have for the country. And, we're taking a deeper dive into that. We just heard from Sean Richards, the leader of the People's Action Movement, on what exactly their views are surrounding some of what were promised and what were not achieved thus far. I know all administrations, locally, regionally, and internationally, would make promises in terms of their 60 to 90-day plans, and many people hold them to those, including representatives of the media hold them a lot to some of those promises that they make in terms of having those implemented within the first 90 days of office, right? We have a caller coming in. Caller, good morning.
Doing, man.
Hi, good morning.
Yeah, this good morning. How you doing again? Hope you're doing pretty good, man.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, you have set the tone pretty well this morning, and this speech by Sean Richards was to me, it was well put together. And with that said, I very much would like to hear from who I would probably call the heavy hitters. The heavy hitters are those regular people that normally call in on your programs to voice their opinions. You know who they are. You know who I'm referring to. The average man who can't pick apart this speech that well, those heavy hitters, they sure can this morning for the nation and for the listeners. So I'm encouraging the heavy hitters them to call in, man, so we can have a healthy discussion this morning, because all of these issues that Sean Richards has now pointed out, he made a great presentation of that. And from me sitting on the side and observing as a new caller, a new person, participating in these talk shows, and you did hear him says people are venting their frustration on these talk shows as well, whether the government is listening or not. But I'm happy he made this speech, and I really like it. I like the way how it's put together and how he picked apart the issues individually.
Okay, so
his presentation was pretty good.
Okay, so caller, just from you're somebody who's been sitting on the sidelines and observing. I like to take the politics out of it and get to the root of issues, right? What's your view in terms of how the country is being run, the administration, and some of the challenges that the administration took on, as it says, when it took office last year? For example, they said they found the country was operating in a deficit. They found some irregularities in some institutions and all of that. Just to get your view and assessment of the 1 year of the government's position so far.
Well, to me, right, the politicians, they're not really honest. They're not really honest, and they're not forthcoming with the information as much readily as they should. Remember now, you just said that there was some rankings, there was some internal ramblings and disagreements in the past administration recently, and that made them fall. That created and brought them to their demise. A lot of people was very enthusiastic when Team Unity was formed. It was the first in the nation's history. There has been coalitions, but the Team Unity concept took the country to another level, and a lot of people was very enthusiastic about it. And for those persons to see how Team Unity fell, it wasn't good. It wasn't good. My assessment from the side, personally, was coming out of COVID, Team Unity should have remained. And I'm going to tell you why. It appears that during COVID, they was handling things pretty well, especially the COVID situation itself. And St. Kitts and Nevis was one of the nations in the world where they handled the COVID very well. And even that MSR Media movie company that came in, they came in as a result of that. They was looking at safe haven where they can cut their movies, and they decided to come to St. Kitts and Nevis because of the way how they handled the COVID situation. And so then, therefore, the Team Unity administration under Harris, he was doing well. He was doing very well financially, especially. He was handling the money pretty good. And that's one of the issues, how and why they fell apart. On the Nevis side, Brantley felt like he wasn't getting enough money, but he could have made well do with whatever money he was getting as well. You know what I'm saying? It's a different way to look at things sometimes. They had to compromise, and they didn't compromise, and they fell. And now we have this new government that's in. Some of the things that they put in place, they're removing now. But some of those things that was in place was benefiting to the nation. And for them to come in and just dismantle some of these things without performing like as if like government is continuous is creating a vibe. You know what I mean? And we find ourselves in a position right now. I feel like the politicians of the day, they're going back to not being transparent. They're going back to lying to the people. The people can't get a hold of them. You know, there's a lot of issues that's on the table right now, and most of the issues that's on the table, they're not like party issues. How you would term that, bipartisan or whatever.
Yeah.
They are national issues. They're national issues. They're not bipartisan issues. So one of the things that I would have liked to see the people do is to go in the street and protest. And I don't believe that the people of St. Kitts and Nevis got that courage. They really only have a lot of lip service. And they need to go past this lip service and show the government that they're the ones that got the power in their hands. And whenever these issues rise to the national level, then we need to go to the street and protest to put the pressure on these parliamentarians so that they can react. And so now we are finding ourselves in the position where we are right now. Whether we're in a good position or not, me, myself, I don't think I would give this administration a D. I'll probably bring it up more, maybe a B minus or a C, a solid C. But because this government, they're still doing some things that's necessary. They have done some stuff in the first year that I'm proud of them too, the same way. But the national issues got to be handled, and most of these individuals' issues that was pointed out by Sean Richards, they really need to be addressed because the poor people in the street is feeling the squeeze. But that's my contribution for now, man. I'll listen off the air, man. Let somebody else come in.
All right, thanks, caller. Well, that caller had given the administration a C. And we go back to the phone lines. Caller, good morning.
Greetings.
Greetings.
Okay, we're gonna start here. You see the political footballing of the killings, of the bloody crimes, the bloodletting crimes that is taking place in the Federation of St. Kitts and Nevis. We don't need it. We don't need that politicking when it comes to this thing. It's a cohesiveness needed, you know, and we find the politicking go on, and it's very detrimental. It is not helping us. It is something we need to tackle together, find the root causes, whatever it is, whatever they may be, and deal with it together. This pointing finger, and whether it is the present administration supporters and whosoever they be, or the opposition, whatever, whoever doing it, we don't need that. We don't go backward with that. That is not helping the situation.
So Carlo, would you agree with the idea that there should be more consultations being held between or amongst the opposition parties and the government?
Of course. That's what it should be all about. This is about serving the people who elected them and who they are looking forward to elect them if the government change. So therefore, the concerns, they should get together and deal with it. There is not enough of that. The communicative apparatus is terrible. It is terrible. And it is only up when election is going on. And that cannot work. To be fair to the present Minister of Agriculture, the problem that we are having pertaining to setting our agricultural sector on the pinnacle where it ought to be has been a long years administration after administration problem, apart from the times of the Honorable Robert Llewellyn Bratcher, who put things in place pertaining to food production. After that, we've been going down the slope, unfortunately, going down and down the slope where agriculture is concerned. And it is important more than ever that we get this sector on the pinnacle where it ought to be, because it's not just about, as we keep repeating, as we told the Honorable PM in his office on Friday, and we keep repeating every time we get a chance to. It is a win-win, twofold win-win, health and wealth. Health and wealth. Yeah? Because right now, the people's health is in a terrible state because of the feeding from the shelves, more than from the natural, straight, vital earth.
So, but Carlo, let me just interject there. What more you think can be done, whether it be by the government, or amongst ourselves as people in St. Kitts and Nevis, especially when it comes to the agriculture sector, because the government is doing its part. I think the farmers are doing their part, but there's some disconnect along the lines there in terms of how exactly we can deal with this. We know the administration has been in office for a year. They've been trying, because based on interviews I would have conducted with both the minister and the PS, they've indicated to me, and these have been written reports both locally and regionally, and to an extent internationally, that we've been doing this much to tackle the problem in agriculture, but at the same time, the issues still persist. Do you think we as people need to do more? Do you think the government needs to do more, because we just launched a 25 by 25 initiative as one avenue to deal with the problem? So how do you think we can actually deal with this issue?
You use the word there, disconnect. Disconnect. We don't need no disconnect where this is concerned. All hands on board. Unison. If we do not have that, it will be like one step backward and 5 steps. One step forward, 5 steps backward. Everyone have to recognize that this is an all for one and a one for all matter. That's the word that you use, disconnect. We need to remove that disconnect. We need to remove that void and work together where this is concerned. Locally, regionally, yeah? And get it together. That is the problem. Whether it is caused by politics, whether it is caused by irresponsibilities, whatever is the cause, we need to recognize it, acknowledge it, and get rid of it and put in place what ought to be in place to make this sector be as it ought to be. Yeah? The prolonging disconnect, there's a reason for it. And we need to find the reason and remedy same. I hope I've answered your question, my brother.
Yes, caller. Thanks for sharing your input.
Blessed love.
Yes. I take care. Yes, so that caller was more along the lines of the agriculture sector and the impact on what more can be done. I know the government recently launched the 25 by 25 initiative, which is in keeping with CARICOM's thrust to reduce the food import bill by 25%. We acknowledge our partners TDC and Carib, and then we'll come right back here on Inside the News.
If you need protection, you need one who you can trust. To secure your investment, you need one who'll do you just. TDC Insurance, you're the one that you can trust. TDC Insurance, you're always safe with us.
TDC Insurance is your go-to insurance company for all your insurance needs. We take pride in offering you the best solutions and ensuring our customers are fully satisfied. TDC Insurance, we take good care of you, guaranteeing you peace of mind. You're always safe with us.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
round. And welcome back to Inside the News here on Win FM. For all you cricket lovers, West Indies are batting against India in their 4th of 5 T20s, and they're 131 for 7 of 15.4 overs. And this morning we're discussing, the phone lines are going off, so we go back to the phone lines. Caller, good morning. Okay, we lost that caller. And we go back to the phone lines. Caller, good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Abel.
Good morning.
Yeah, I kind of tune in late, but are we just touching local news or are we international as well?
Well, we are generally speaking about what's the biggest stories for the week here, and we're going deeper into it. But we're also taking a look at the 1-year anniversary of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration. And we played a clip, an excerpt from Sean's speech at the press conference earlier this week.
Okay, Mr. Abel. Now, permit me to go global for a minute. Now, the 5th of this month, the 5th of the 8th, 2023, was prophesied by the late Malcolm X that black people should unite. Now, I'm taking you to Montgomery Riverboat Brawl. I don't know if you're familiar with that, but I am glad that our brother who was assassinated made mention of this day coming forward, and we are seeing changes unstoppable, Mr. Abel. Now, so much to talk about, right? And I'm going to try and be brief because I have a lot to touch. When I think of
from African filmmakers
what is happening in Niger,
and Gabon.
a face comes to mind, and this is the face of Victoria Newland. Now, she's ferocious, very ferocious, because I think she was behind what happened in Ukraine, and I know she was in South Africa, and she was
since its inception in 1961.
I stand to be corrected,
the
Niger,
Kuwait
but I
Fund
know
has
she was
been
in South
supporting
Africa.
people's livelihoods in
Giving
over 100
terms and
countries by
conditions
funding projects in an
to
array
the
of
Africans
sectors.
pertaining to their support in the Ukraine war. You know, in my opinion, I think she should be arrested, Mr. Abel.
These initiatives ultimately help to
You
eradicate
see, we are a
poverty
people that just take
and
news
promote
and just
sustainable
follow what we
development.
see. Although we are recognizing that change is inevitable. Now, here we have a coup that was taking place in Niger, and the people have demonstrated. And what I found profound, Mr. Abel, is what the present president of Niger has said in the Russia-Africa summit. And his words, and I'm going to paraphrase.
Well, it's time for sport now.
My
The latest from the
generation
Women's World Cup in
are
Australia.
asking
Here's
me
Rahul. Tom,
why
thank you
our
very much.
country is
Co-host
so
Australia
rich
will
and
play
yet we are
England
so
in the
poor.
semi-finals of the Women's
We
World
have
Cup. The
America and
Matildas
France
reaching
telling
the last four
Africans
for the
that
first
if
time
you
in their
interfere
history
with our
after a
interests,
dramatic win
you're
over
gonna
France
face jail
on penalties
time.
in Brisbane.
Mr.
Well, this
Evans,
match was
who
short
gave
on
them that
goal, but
right?
certainly not on drama. France
Who gave them
almost
that right to
taking
go
the lead
into
in
your
the
house
12th
and tell
minute.
you what to do with what
At the
you
other
have?
end, Australia also had their chances.
How long have they been
Manchester
doing
City
this,
striker
Mr.
Mary Fowler
Evans?
denied by some brilliant
They've
French
been doing
defending.
this for decades.
So no goals in
Now, here
normal
we
time.
have
So on to extra time, and on 100 minutes,
85%
France
of
thought they'd won it.
Africa's
Australia's Alana
GDP
Kennedy
goes
heading
to
into her own
France
net, but it was
Central Bank.
disallowed for a foul. Much to her
85
obvious
steps,
relief,
Mr.
the
Evans.
match then went to
It's
penalties.
been
France
happening
missing
from, you can
this
go beyond
crucial spot kick.
1960 or
It allowed Australia
1961.
to
It's
prevail
been
7-6
happening.
in what was the
While
longest shootout in Women's
80% of
World Cup
Nigerians
history.
are without electricity.
Tonight's been a really
How
special
are we
night
supposed
for
to
so
take
many
this?
reasons.
How are we
Australia
supposed to
has
take
been,
this in the 21st century?
pretty much this whole
All that
tournament,
is before our
and
eyes.
we've
We
needed
have
them every
seen
single game.
scriptures are
They've really
being
turned up for us
fulfilled,
tonight.
yet we
And,
close
we're
our eyes to
we're
it
super
and
happy
still
to
want
be
to glorify
Australians.
our common
honestly,
enemy.
I have no words.
That's what, Mr. Evans, they
So a
are our
mouthful
common
for clash
enemy.
with England
There's no
now
mistake about
awaits.
it
They
because
reached their
they
third
can say what
successive
they
World
say.
Cup semi-final, coming from behind
Oh,
to beat
Africa is
Colombia
a
2-1.
whole
Alex
country.
Thomas was watching
And
in Sydney.
Europe is a garden. The rest of the world
Minutes
is a
before
jungle.
kick-off at Stadium
These
Australia,
public figures
and no one seemed to
can
care
say
about
what they
England
say
versus
and
Colombia.
get away with it.
All eyes were on
And
the
they're
big
not hiding.
screens put up to show
But
the
let me
game
say
in
this,
Brisbane.
Mr. Aber, they
A
are afraid,
celebration
you know.
sparked by
They
Courtney
are
Vine's
so
winning
afraid.
penalty
Victoria
kick,
Newman is
revealing the
playing
level
right
of
now.
Matilda's mania
She put him
gripping
here
the
and
host
there
nation.
because they're not going to be a next Libya.
With that
And repeat it by
nail-biter out of the
NATO,
way, time
there
to
will
celebrate
not
a
be
clash of
another
styles in the last of the
Libya
quarterfinals.
by NATO
European champions
into
England
Niger.
facing the lowest-ranked team
They
left
blew
in
up
the
the-
competition.
they blew up the
And only the
pipeline in
second
Russia,
South American
hoping
side
that
ever to make it this
Nigeria
far
would have
at a
supplied,
Women's
would have been
World
their
Cup.
salvation. The
quickly,
Niger is saying that
Caicedo.
this pipeline is not going to run through their
Santos.
borders. They
Despite
have to pay
dominating
for what they
possession,
want,
England
Mr.
went
Abel,
behind in the first half
because our
after
people will not
midfielder
remain in
Lacey
poverty.
Santos sent the ball
And this is
spiralling
what the
over the
generation
head
is
of
saying.
goalkeeper Mary Earps.
Everything
Another
that is fueled on
75,000 strong
the
crowd
continent.
erupting.
This week
Colombia
they were
fans
talking
bringing
about
the noise.
Nigeria too again in Antigua.
In the closing
Okay,
moments of
Colin,
the
first
first half
seconds
in
to
Sydney.
Bronze with the
At
head.
half-time, it was 1-all. England
Hello?
levelling the
30
scores with a
seconds
goal
to wrap.
fashioned
We have
from
to take another.
persistence
Yeah, all that
rather
is
than
happening
artistry. Lauren Hemp
due
with the final
just to
touch after a
create
messy
chaos
scramble.
for us to get out so that they can stay there. We have to reverse them. We have to get rid
Then
of all
with
this
just under
foolishness
half
that
an
is
hour to
happening.
go, England
Thank
in
you for
front
hearing
for the
me.
first time. A
All right,
defensive
thanks,
mistake
Colin.
punished
He went
decisively
international there
by
to give a
Alessia
perspective
Russo.
on the coup
And that
in
proved to be the
Nigeria
winning
and
goal.
suggesting that a lot of what has been happening.
So England are through to their third successive Women's World Cup semi-final and are now just 2 wins away from adding this trophy to the European Championship title they won last year. But standing in their way, historic rivals Australia, the host nation that believes this is the Matilda's year instead.
We were hoping for England to win, and
things are not going to go correct.
And what about England v Australia
Unless
next
we do
Wednesday?
things according to the Bible, things are not going correct.
I mean, how big is England Australia?
It's massive. And the only answers and solutions for us here
The Colombians
and
got the crowd.
Africa and all
We're
over
happy. Australia's happy to go
is
up
to be
against England
obedient
now.
to the Bible,
So it
do
was a great
things
match.
according to the Bible.
We went
because
to France
one
in
of
the
the things
2019
you read in the
Women's World
Bible
Cup, and it's
is that
way
when
bigger now.
nations do not obey the
What are you
Bible,
guys going to be doing next
God
Wednesday?
send nations even more wicked than they to destroy them. And that is what we are seeing
From
over
32
the whole world,
teams,
including
3.5 weeks
Africa,
ago, we are down to
here in the
4 at this
Caribbean,
World Cup.
and
And we'll
in many
continue
other
to see
places of the
wild
world.
scenes like these
Only the
while
Bible is the
Australia remains
solution
in the
for all
hunt
of our
to
problems.
capture the biggest
And
prize
I would like to say, as
in
usual,
women's football.
greetings in the name of Jesus
Alex
Christ,
Thomas,
the only
Al
Savior of
Jazeera,
his elect, his chosen sinners only from
So
from
here
their
is
sins
that
and from hell,
semi-final
and Jesus
lineup
with the
in
second
full. The
person of
first
the
match
eternal
sees
Trinity.
Spain play
Greetings
Sweden
in his
on
name
Tuesday
once
in
more again.
Auckland,
God
and then
bless.
on Wednesday, co-host
All right,
Australia
thanks, Carla.
facing England
So
in
that
Sydney.
Carla
All 4 teams
showing it from a
looking to win the
religious
World Cup
perspective in
for the very
terms
first
of,
time.
you know,
Well, away from the Women's
what's
World Cup,
affecting
England
us
captain
here
Harry Kane has
across the
completed his
world.
move to
So
German
yes,
champions
we
Bayern
had a
Munich.
lot
The
of
Bavarian
news
club have
for
paid
this
Spurs
week
more than
across,
$100
locally,
million
regionally,
to
and
sign him.
internationally.
Kane
But
leads
locally, the
Tottenham
big
as their
story
all-time
would have
leading
been,
scorer with
well, big
280
stories
goals
would have been,
in 435
Simplistic
appearances.
Labour
He
Party
posted this
administration,
message
you
on
know,
social media to
being
Spurs
recognized
fans.
or recognizing
The
its
message,
1 year
though, to all you
anniversary,
fans. around the world,
this
every
week
single Tottenham
because,
fan that
as you
supported
know,
me
we
and
had
been
a
with me
change of
throughout my journey.
administration last year following
Me and my family will cherish it
internal
forever.
rambling
We'll never
within the
forget
Unity
all the
Coalition.
moments we've had together. It's not a
Sean
goodbye because
Richards,
you never
who was
know
then the Deputy
how
Prime
things
Minister,
pan out in the
still remains
future.
leader of the
But
People's
it's
Action
a thank
Movement.
you, and I'll see
He
you
gave
soon.
his perspective and his
Meanwhile,
grade,
Paris
along
Saint-Germain
with
have
some other
completed the
colleagues within
$55
the
million
party,
signing of forward Ousmane
surrounding the
Dembele
1
from
year
Barcelona.
how
The
government
French
has performed
World Cup winner joins on a
thus
5-year
far,
deal. It's a
and
boost to PSG's
expectations
attacking
and what
options
he
with
would recommend,
Kylian Mbappe and
the
Neymar all currently
administration do. He
unavailable
was strong
in
in
the
his
first team
criticism
squad.
of the Dr.
In
Terry
the English Premier League, last season's
He
runners-up
also had the
Arsenal are off to a
the
successful
closure
start
of
for
the
this campaign.
Culturama
They have 2-1 winners
earlier
at
this
home to
week.
Nottingham Forest.
And,
Eddie Nketiah
you
set
know,
them on
Minister
their way
Evelyn
midway
gave a
through the
perspective
first
in
half.
terms of
Bukayo Saka
what-
then
how
fired
he
in
saw
the
it
pick
this
of the
year.
goals
He-
to make
he
it
said it
2
was a
before
success,
half-time.
describing it
Forest did pull
you know,
one
as
back
being
late
one of
on, but
those
Arsenal held on
events that
for the win.
it achieved what it
Well,
set
Lionel
out to
Messi has
achieve.
continued his perfect
And
start to life in the
also,
United States. It's now 5
you know, he
matches,
was
5 wins and
a
8
bit
goals for the
sad
World Cup
about
winner
what
since he joined
transpired
Inter Miami.
with the
The
mishaps
latest victory
surrounding
came
the
against Charlotte in the
tractor
quarterfinals of the
trailer
League's
incident
Cup. Joseph Martinez set
Neves
Inter Miami
during
on their way
Juve,
with a
which
penalty,
was
much to the
Monday.
delight of the
But
owner
that
David
was
Beckham,
most of what
who would have been
happened
even
in
more
St.
pleased
Kitts.
later on when his
Some other
star
news
signing Messi
did
kept
pop
up
up.
his record of scoring in every
But
game for his new
regionally, we
club,
had
Inter Miami winning 4-0.
the Antigua girls.
Roberto Firmino scored a
doing their
hat-trick on
voyage
his
again
debut for
across
Al
the
Ahly in the
sea,
Saudi Pro League in a 3-1 victory
internationally.
over Al
And
Hazm. The
then
Brazilian
the
also
mother and
captained the
daughter
Sky
duo who
side,
actually
scoring 2
went
goals
up
before half-time,
to
getting the
space.
third in the second half.
that
31-year-old
was
joined
a
at
really
the
good
club from
achievement to
Liverpool
see
as a
two
free agent
Caribbean
last month
nationals
after
actually
8
being
years
able to
at
fly
Anfield.
up to space.
Tennis
and
world number one
women
Carlos
in
Alcaraz has
general,
lost
which
for the
was a
first
really
time
good,
since the French Open back
feeling,
in
and I'm
June.
very proud
It
to
happened
see
in the
that
quarterfinals of
actually
the
happened now.
Masters
So now
Series
they're
event
officially
in
called
Toronto. The
astronauts.
Spaniard was on a 14-match
So,
winning
it was
streak
all
going into
part
this
of
clash
Virgin
with
Galactic's
American Tommy Paul.
space
Curiously
tourism
out of sorts,
exploration.
Alcaraz lost the
So
first
that
set
in and of
6-3.
itself
The 20-year-old
was
taking
really
out his
good to
frustration
see,
on his racket. He
happening
did turn things around though in the second
across
set,
the
winning it
Caribbean.
6-4 to
Internationally,
level
as you
the
would have heard
match.
from the
But
caller,
despite
Niger,
shots like that, it proved to be a false dawn.
That was one of the
Tommy Paul
stories
took the
happening
deciding set 6 games to 3
internationally,
to win the
as
match, and it's the Americans'
the ongoing
first victory
scandal
over a
surrounding
world
the
number
former
one player.
president of the
As
United
for
States,
Alcaraz, it's
Donald
his
Trump,
first defeat since Novak
and
Djokovic
his,
beat him in the semi-finals
arraignments and
at Roland
his
Garros.
appearances in court.
I realized that I
surrounding
didn't
his
play well.
documents trial,
know,
as well as the fact that he was
this
put on a
match.
leash,
So
as some described it, because
what I can
even
do
though
now is
he
practice
was
to
given
be
some
better.
leeway
You
in
know, I
terms of
have
freedom of information and
some weeks
his
before
free-
US Open, but
his
now
First
I
Amendment
have to be
right
focused. You know, in
to
Cincinnati, it's a
be
Master
able to
1000,
speak
it's
to
a
the
big
public.
tournament as well.
The
So
judge in that
I
case actually put
had to
some
talk with my
level of
team. You know,
restrictions in
I
terms of
had to fly to
what he
Cincinnati,
can
prepare
share
well
publicly
Cincinnati, but
surrounding the case and
obviously
documents and
I
evidence that will be given
take a lot
to
of
him,
lessons from
in
this
that
tournament. You know,
case.
coming
But at this
to
point in time, we have to break for the
next ones.
midday news, and then
All right,
we'll
that's all
come
you sport
right
for me.
back
For now,
at
Sana
the
Hamish
end
will
of
have
the
more for you a
midday
little
news. Should
later
be
on.
probably around
Brilliant. Thank you so
12:30
much,
or
Rahul.
And
Well,
then
that's
we'll
all for
continue
me
the
for this news,
discussion.
Albert. I will be
I'm
back
John
in
Hamer,
just a
sitting in
moment with much
today
more
here
of the
on
day's
Inside the
news.
News. We have been talking about the 1-year anniversary of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration in St. Kitts and Nevis. So right now we'll hear from our partners one more time before we break for the midday news here on WINNMedia.
KDP Enterprises, The Grange, and Caribou.
Blockchain and cryptocurrencies, disruptive technology.
Join with me in introducing a bell to outlaw cryptocurrency.
All the way to a fair financial system.
With Bitcoin's open source software, we can create our own money.
You found the sound. 98.9. Win FM.
We now bring you the headline news. The headline news is brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, and Caribou.
With over a century of perfection behind the Mackeson name. A smooth blend with perfect balance and richness. It's no wonder Mackeson Triple Stout has a legacy of perfection. Enjoyed the world over. Introducing our new look with the same great taste. Mackeson. All hail the king.
Please drink responsibly.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
With the WINNFM Midday News, I am Kevon Brown. Our top stories. The People's Action Movement gives St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party a grade D in performance for its first year in office. St. Lucia's government is being warned by an independent senator of the dangers of its current tax policies. Antiguans create history with Journey to Edge of Space, the first from Antigua and Barbuda, the Caribbean, and the first mother and daughter to reach the final frontier. Internationally, women on basic pay in Africa are spending between 3% and 13% of their monthly wage on sanitary products. Ghana is the worst affected, with women spending $1 in every 7 for sanitary products. Now the details. The People's Action Movement, PAM, in their analysis, has given a grade D for the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party's first year in office.
It appears that the dumb is leading the deaf, and the blind is leading the rest. This is essentially a one-term government in free fall, fumbling, floundering, and flailing in the dark, unable to gain any traction in the critical areas. Measured by their own manifesto, this government has failed miserably across the board, and worst of all, they have failed the people. They have been deceptive, delinquent, and disgraceful in their operations to date. And the People's Action Movement, PAM, finds this crisis of leadership we are now experiencing very disturbing. Given the dismal state of affairs pervading just about every sector in the public service, therefore, the PAM has no option other than to assign a grade D, fail, for the colossal mismanagement of our country's business that this Labour administration has perpetrated over the past year,
said the leader of the People's Action Movement during a press conference on August 10th, 2023. The People's Action Movement, in its analysis of the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party administration's performance, focused on the manifesto presented by the Labour Party prior to taking office in August 2022, which promised certain gains by the 1-year mark. Chairman of the People's Action Movement, Azad Gums, outlined some of the points in the St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party manifesto that was promised by the year mark.
We look at housing allowance for service personnel, which was stated by them in their manifesto. To such date, no such allowance has been paid. We look at the financial incentives for alarm systems, solar panels, and water catchment. No known financial incentives provided to any of these. And so when we look at the performances, even listing those, someone mentioned to me that we have missed a lot. In fact, if we were to go through the list of promises, you'll realize that over 50%, if not more, have not been fulfilled. And so upon grading the Labour Party, we have given them a grade D, as the political leader has indicated, and D is for delinquent, disrespectful, disgraceful.
That then begs the question, how does the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party track the success and implementation of its manifesto?
So basically, we have at the level of the Cabinet Secretary, he has our manifesto. The Cabinet Secretary would look at the promises, or the commitments rather, that were made, and we, from there, will develop a strategy of how we will introduce these, bringing them to the Cabinet, and then if we have to bring them to the Parliament. So we have a direct mechanism of how we do that. We have been able to do a lot of things from the manifesto, not all, and we have been able to do a lot more things that the manifesto did not even mention. If you look at our legislative activity, and I want to thank the AG, 22 pieces of legislation at least to strengthen our good governance laws here in St. Kitts and Nevis. That is historic, because never before had we done what was necessary to make sure that integrity in public life and good governance and so forth actually become a reality. We know in 2013 the laws were put in place. The Labour administration then was voted out in 2015. We heard from 2015 to 2022 a lot of talk about good governance, integrity in public life, and we have to face it. Nothing was done. And in less than a year, I have started the initial submission of my documentation to fulfill the legal obligation of that law, integrity in public life. So the mechanism is to look at our commitments, have it distilled at the level of the CAPSEC, and bring in those so that we can make the cabinet decisions and the legislative decisions to make sure that we implement those commitments we made to the people.
Said Prime Minister the Honourable Dr. Terence Drew during the August 4th broadcast of In Focus. The Prime Minister then explained that in implementing a manifesto, depending on the situation when taking office, it would impede the implementation of the promises made in the manifesto.
So there are a number of things that really go into it. Not just because when you get into office, there is also a reality that you have to deal with. There are things that you met there that you never expected to meet. We had an idea that things could have been somewhat off, but it was way more off than we thought. For example, we never imagined that you could not account for tens of millions of dollars from Development Bank. We heard about surplus, and so when we were told that we actually had a deficit and not a surplus, that in itself was a shocker. When we saw that National Bank suffered its first loss, when people were talking, big profits and big dividends before National Bank, when we saw that Development Bank was on the ropes, when we saw that Social Security was in the red in terms of paying out more than it was bringing in, we recognized very quickly that this was an economic reality that we had to deal with. And that is why our first action was to strengthen the financial institutions and to put St. Kitts and Nevis back on track. And not to talk about the CBI program. Significant amount of work had to be done to strengthen that program and to protect our visa-free access. And we did so, not reactively, but proactively. So I would say that, in terms of ranking, one has to look at the environment that you actually met, the present condition and what need to be implemented quickly to deal with the present situation of the people, and what you had committed to. And so those would influence the ranking mechanism. For example, let's say you had a particular commitment you're wanting to implement, but then something happens that you have to quickly respond to, then that will take precedent, even though that commitment definitely will have to be dealt with.
Journalist German Abel asked the Prime Minister on the July 29th broadcast of WINS Inside the News, at what point does an administration return to the people and admit that it cannot deliver on all that was promised in a manifesto? Prime Minister said it was too early in their tenure in office to determine such. In regional news, St. Lucia's government is being warned by an independent senator of the dangers of its current tax policies. DBS St. Lucia has that story.
A A bill to amend the Income Tax Act was debated during this week's meeting of Parliament. The amendment states that the government will no longer deduct income tax from contracts valued up to $10,000. Senator D. Lee expressed concerns about the impact of these changes on the country's income tax base, calling for a broader discussion on the island's tax regime.
What I've noted, and I said it before and I'm going to repeat it again, we are constantly in all the little tinkering, and I understand why the tinkering is happening. But the impact is that you are narrowing the income tax base in St. Lucia. And so fewer and fewer persons are actually having to bear the burden of income taxation. I think we are getting to the point where we're going to need to look at this and decide whether this is something that's sustainable and we can continue with, or whether we need to move more fully into value-added tax and maybe other forms of taxation, which are more evenly spread out.
Senator Lee emphasized the importance of a candid dialogue on government finances with civil society and the business community, free of political disputes.
I think we all accept that revenue has to be raised.
Antiguans create history with Journey to Edge of Space, the first from Antigua and Barbuda, the Caribbean, and the first mother and daughter to reach the final frontier. ABS Antigua reports.
The Antigua-Barbuda flag waved proudly not only across Albuquerque, New Mexico today, but across the entire world as two Antiguans and Barbudans, Keisha Shahaf and Anastasia Mez, made their way into space.
Go get them, guys.
Orbiting almost 60 miles above the Earth's atmosphere, the two experienced apogee, weightlessness, looked out the window and saw that the world was in fact round. And upon their return, although emotions were certainly running high, Keisha and Anastasia were both able to put things into perspective.
Most amazing thing I've ever done. And Antigua went to space. A childhood dream has come true. I've been to space and back with my daughter. We're making history, and this is just beautiful. And the pilots, everyone, they delivered exactly what they said it would be. And if anyone was wondering, Earth is round. You stole my line. That was supposed to be my call. I have no words. The only thought I had the entire time was, wow. That's how I can sum up the experience, just wow. And that.
Reporting from Spaceport America, right here in New Mexico, I'm Ursule Charles Jr.
We now bring you these international reports.
These Zimbabweans are celebrating receiving period products. For some girls, it will be the only ones they get all year.
Menstrual health has an impact on economic growth, particularly socioeconomic justice. And so if we want to bring about women empowerment and the eradication of period poverty, we need to pull in all our collective voices.
In 2019, Nokuzola successfully got the government to scrap the 15% sales tax on sanitary pads in South Africa.
The overall fight is for gender equality, is for women's rights to be treated as human rights.
Nokuzola is one of many Africans trying to make change to period poverty across the continent. Ibrahim is trying to also get boys involved in the conversation in Nigeria and to remove stigmas around talking about menstrual hygiene.
I feel I need to do something before it gets out of hand. So I believe with initiatives like this all over Africa, we can counter and eradicate period poverty.
The UN Population Fund defines period poverty as the struggle many low-income women and girls face while trying to afford menstrual products.
The stories that I've been listening to those girls, it's so touching to hear someone say, I cannot afford to buy pads.
Our BBC Pan-Africa investigation has revealed that this is the case for many countries across the continent. Through our research, we've found that those on basic pay are spending between 3 to 13% of their monthly wage on sanitary products alone. This potentially results in girls having to use newspapers, cow dung, and even transactional sex to get the products that they need. Ghana is the worst affected of these. A woman earning $26 per month will have to spend at least $3 on pads. This equates to $1 in $7 of what a woman earns.
What's stopping us from fighting against eradicating period poverty? What's stopping us from achieving gender equality? I mean, it doesn't have to take more than 300 years.
Nokuzola says tax reductions are not enough. She is now working to get a menstrual health rights bill passed in South Africa.
So if we work together, then we'll be able to bring in the needed traction, the needed attention towards eradicating period poverty once and for all across the globe.
Jem O'Reilly, BBC News.
Bubbles are helping to stop plastic from reaching the ocean.
The bubble curtain of our bubble barrier system.
Philip Erhon is part of a team of scientists who came up with this clever way of catching plastic on one of Amsterdam's canals.
We think this is really the last opportunity to capture plastic in our waterways before it flows off into our oceans, where it will then start dispersing, and some will come back to our beaches, some will sink to the bottom of the ocean, but ultimately it will start to break down into smaller and smaller pieces.
Amsterdam has over 90 miles of canals. A lot of plastic litter from around the city gets into them. The bubble barrier is at the end of one of the canals, so it tries to catch plastic just before it flows into the river and out to sea.
So underwater we basically just have a perforated rubber tube, and then we put pressure onto that tube, and then through all the tiny little perforations, small air bubbles will start to rise towards the surface, which create that upwards current that can lift plastic towards the surface and then guide it towards the catchment system. We see the usual suspects of plastic lids from bottles, cups, maybe throwaway or reusable ones, fragments of food containers, a lot of tiny little pieces of styrofoam. This is really everywhere. So the styrofoam I really call the cancer of plastics, because it just spreads and is hard to really ever get back out of the environment.
The inventors estimate the barrier stops nearly 90% of this type of material getting into the river. It's then cleared 3 times a week by one of the city's waste barges.
We have 3 boats going around and they pick up 42 tons of plastics every year. But we can't go around, catch it at all locations 7 days a week. This is one of the places that whatever we miss, it will be filtered out here.
Oh, I think it's a very nice, cute idea too, because it doesn't look bad as well. No. It adds something to the canal, I think.
It's not polluting, it doesn't stop any boat to go up and down in the canals. So yeah, I think it's a great idea overall.
The barrier isn't going to solve the plastic waste problem on its own, but it can also play a useful role in highlighting the problem.
The bubble barrier can quite literally reveal what's flowing through our waters and off to our oceans. And then we can look at that and see if we can maybe find alternatives and raise awareness, not just among the general public, but also among politicians, for them to take more action so that hopefully in the future we have less plastic ending up in our waters in the first place.
There's going to be a new barrier installed in Portugal this autumn, and they're exploring several locations for one in the UK, including Manchester. So maybe we'll be seeing some bubbles in a river here soon.
Word quickly spread on Friday morning that residents of Lahaina, a historic Maui town largely destroyed by the fire, would be allowed to return at noon, though with a 10 p.m. curfew. A massive line of cars rapidly formed. Some waiting in line expressed their disbelief, not just at the lack of a warning as the wildfires approached their town earlier in the week, but the lack of information since.
We had no sirens. All that stuff they're posting, I had a family member that was stuck in their house until 12 o'clock the night that the fire was going.
We had family members that were burned alive in cars. I have family that's still stuck with no gas, no water, no power, no way to tell our family in the mainland that we're safe. I was born and raised here for 21 years. This is all I ever known. I watched my whole hometown burn down.
Over 1,000 buildings have been destroyed, many in the oceanfront core of what was Hawaii's capital in the early 19th century before US colonization. Many of these areas will remain off-limits to residents as the search continues for human remains. Hawaii's governor confirmed that those who died did so in the open as they tried to escape. Thousands remain in shelters. Many have nothing left.
I lost my condo, my Jeep, my laptop, my cell phone, everything I ever owned for 40 years that I lived in Lahaina.
And it remains unclear how this town, that just last week had a population of 13,000, will rebuild. Shia Bertansi, Al Jazeera, Maui.
Family, friends, and supporters of assassinated presidential candidate Fernando Villavicencio accompanied his hearse to the cemetery, demanding justice.
The people want to see the remains of the only man who had guts in this country. There are many men in Ecuador, but Villavicencio was the only one with the courage to confront those criminals, the mafia.
Many blame police forces, whom Villavicencio had accused of working for drug mafias, for not providing security despite the numerous death threats against him. At a rally earlier this month, the former congressman and journalist said he wouldn't wear a bulletproof vest and vowed to hunt down organized crime.
Come and get me. Here I am. They said they'd break me. Here I am. Let the drug leaders come with their gunmen. The time for threats is over.
Authorities have arrested 6 Colombians whom they say were hired gunmen. Violent crime and drug trafficking have turned Ecuador into one of the region's most dangerous countries.
When there's a crime like this, you have to ask yourself who benefits, and obviously, it's the other candidates who will capture Villavicencio's votes. And the one who is hurt the most is Luisa Gonzalez, the candidate who is in the lead up until now in the polls, because there's a campaign to accuse her party of being behind this, although there is no evidence.
Luisa Gonzalez is from the same left-wing political party as its exiled leader, Rafael Correa.
There is no clear evidence as to who was behind the killing or whether there is a political motive, as many are claiming. But what is likely is that the killing of a presidential candidate who was a staunch enemy of former Ecuadorian President Rafael Correa will impact the results of August 20th's presidential elections.
Despite calls for them to be postponed, electoral authorities say they'll go ahead regardless.
Fernando, you will live in our hearts and in all of Ecuador.
Villavicencio was polling 5th amongst the 8 presidential candidates, but his murder has sparked fear amongst remaining candidates and Ecuadorians at large, who are looking for answers, but especially for a leader capable of ending the country's uncontrollable violence. Lucia Newman, Al Jazeera, Quito, Ecuador.
You were listening to the Midday News on WINNFM 98.9. The headlines: the People's Action Movement gives St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party a grade D in performance for its first year in office. St. Lucia's government is being warned by an independent senator of the dangers of its current tax policies. Antiguans create history with Journey to Edge of Space, the first from Antigua and Barbuda, the Caribbean, and the first mother and daughter to reach the final frontier. Internationally, women on basic pay in Africa are spending between 3% and 13% of their monthly wage on sanitary products. Ghana is the worst affected, with women spending $1 in every 7 for sanitary products. Thank you for listening.
That was the WINNFM Headline News. The Headline News was brought to you by Caribbean Alliance, KDP Enterprises, The Grange, and Carib Brewery.
Shipping your cargo shouldn't be a hassle. It can be as easy as a single call to Amerijet International, your worldwide cargo transportation solution. We provide all the services you need to ship your goods anywhere in the world, whether your shipment is fresh, frozen, large or small, alive or hazardous. You can count on Amerijet to deliver it safe and sound. Amerijet International, by land, sea or air, we get it there. For more information, visit us online at www.amerijet.com or call us at KDP Enterprises at 466-9595.
Did you know that the Grange Healthcare Facility is the first purpose-built, non-governmental healthcare organization on St. Kitts? It's situated at Otley's, 7 miles east of Basseterre in beautifully landscaped surroundings. The Grange has a team of highly trained professionals and provides care that's rated as being comparable with UK and North American standards. The Grange offers varied accommodations to suit your individual needs, and our all-inclusive packages make the cost of care per hour the most competitive on the island. Services include convalescent care for all ages, daycare facilities for older adults, rehabilitation services, and training and continuing education for healthcare providers. For more information, call 466-5525 or 465-8020. Fax 466-8221 or email thegrangehealth@gmail.com or visit our website at www.grangehealthcarefacility.com.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
When it comes to the important things in life, your health, your education, your choice of a life partner, and of course your insurance provider, only the best will do. Caribbean Alliance Insurance is the only insurance company in the Eastern Caribbean with an A excellent rating. We have a robust 3-tier reinsurance strategy that protects our policyholders from multiple catastrophes, even if they occur in quick succession. We spread our risks over 18 territories, ensuring minimal impact to individual territories when a disaster strikes. We provide an excellent claims experience. Claim settlement is usually between 24 to 48 hours. Our A excellent rating means that you are more secure with us. Contact us for motor, property, marine, public liability, employer's liability, and other policies. Dalil Walwyn, people you can trust. Local agent for Caribbean Alliance Insurance. Tomorrow secured.
Found the sound 98.9 WINNMedia FM.
People make the world go
$50,000?
$50,000?
$50,000? Win big with TDC! Win up to $50,000 cash in the TDC Mega Rewards Mega Raffle! To enter, you must be a Mega Rewards member or sign up to TDC Mega Rewards Loyalty Program. Shop at our TDC retail stores or online at shoptdcgroup.com to receive one entry for every $250 spent. Draws take place from July to November. Win $10,000 every month with your entry rolled over so you can win, and win even more.
Yes, this is 50.
Terms and conditions apply.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
Welcome back to Inside the News here on WINNFM. I'm Jermaine Abel, just sitting in today. I'm in the hot seat for Inside the News, and we're looking at some of the major stories that made the news across St. Kitts and Nevis. The news making those big stories across the region and internationally. In the first hour, we heard from former Deputy Prime Minister and leader of the People's Action Movement, Sean Richards, giving his assessment and grade surrounding the first year of the St. Kitts Nevis Labour Party administration. You know, Dr. Terence Drew has, in recent weeks, and other ministers of government have rightly been so, expressing their views on some of their achievements and successes over the first year. You know, they've been talking about dealing with the water issues, you know, some of the investigations, you know, dealing with the CBI program, you know, stabilizing some of the financial institutions that they, based on what they would have seen when they took office, among other achievements. You know, but the leader of the People's Action Movement does not support some of that. He believed that more could be done. A lot of what was promised has not been achieved thus far, at least in the first year. So we go straight to the phone lines and hear from this caller. Caller, good afternoon.
Greetings proudly, my brother.
Greetings.
Okay, we heard the word successes. And we have a punchline. Because successes is a good word, you know. We have a punchline that we like to echo. And it goes like this. The right places, in the right places, beget successes after successes. Okay, in the midday news, we heard a news coming from the continent where we are from. It's concerning our women and their struggle concerning items to deal with their monthly period. And as we listen to that item, what comes to mind is the inhuman level of poverty that our continent is in, a continent that is rich beyond measures in natural resources. And when we see what is happening to the human inhabitants, the human resources. It is sad. And even in parts of the continent where we are in control, when I say we are in control, in terms of the color of skin, we are in control even in that unfortunate upholding of the political system, the Westminster style political system, which is not ours. We are seeing that we are in control there, and the situation is what it is. So we are laying it squarely at the feet of of them who colonize and still continue to rape the continent, and our brothers and sisters there.
Bakala, one question.
Control can do better. I beg your pardon. I'm sorry.
One question on that. Do you think more we as Caribbean territories that have been we have basically been, our ancestors came from Africa. Do you think we could do more to assist Africa? I know, for example, Antigua and Jamaica are trying to bridge the gap or pave that bridge between the Caribbean and Africa. Do you think that we as a region could do more to assist Africa and vice versa?
My brother, yes, indeed. Even in our individual struggles in the islands where we are scattered, economically, yeah? Because we are hearing the wages during the news item, we are hearing the wages of $24 per month. You know what I mean? So economically, we are much more there in our small parts, in these plantations scattered here and there. And so we have that plus, and there are other benefits, yeah, that they can get from us. Of course, we can do much more. We don't welcome our brothers and sisters from the continent as we ought to. We are saying that they are going to be flooding us out and taking a piece of the pie which we are scrabbling for in these plantations, and it's so unfortunate. As you said, vice versa. They can do a lot for us here, yeah. And we can do a lot for them, much more. I agree with you. And in the news item, to show you what kind of people we are, in the news item, the sister made the sound that not only for women who are going through this poverty-stricken vibes to the point that they cannot even keep up with basic items for their use during their monthly period. She said that she hoping that this will be a global filling of the void. Wherever there is the poverty, yeah, that it be filled. And believe you me, there's enough in the world. There's enough in the earth for everyone, my brother. We know that. It is the system in place. And as we always say, a system is not in a vacuum, People put systems in place. So it is people's decision. The decision of the few in the earth who are causing the gap to be so wide betwixt rich and poor, and the class system that is created and dictated by economics. And it is unfortunate to see us, who was taken away as human cargo, is part of this abominable class system that is dictated by economics, where the upper class of everything, the middle class is there, we know what goes on there, and the low class is in dire poverty. Yeah? Give thanks for the time. Blessed love.
Thanks, caller. Yes, so we're looking at some of the major issues locally, regionally, and internationally. But like I was saying before we took the caller, the major... we have another caller on the line. Caller, good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Hi, good afternoon.
I am moving over so I could hear you better. Good afternoon to all the listeners at home and abroad. We're giving God thanks for life, you know. While there's life, there's hope.
We have to.
Now, I heard the discussion before the lunch. And this thing about campaign promises. The people and the parties that make them know that they are unachievable. It's tantamount to lying. It is tantamount to deception.
But Ms. Henry,
it doesn't matter what anybody come and, oh, you know, we wanted to, but no.
Yeah, but Ms. Henry, I think, and the question that would jump out is, at what point do parties, whether or not it be this administration, previous administration, administrations down the road, at what point do you believe that a party should come back to the people, or a government should come to the people and say, hey, even though we made these promises, we ran into some issues getting them accomplished. You know, be frank with the people. And I think some people may
but
understand
you see,
that.
it starts with before they say them. You know, some people always saying me, you know, even when a lot of the parties were talking, I said, look, haven't you all heard that there's a recession possibly coming? Everybody giving away. So what we had last election was who could give away the most.
But also,
who could offer the most with no connection to reality.
But also, let's be frank and fair to the government, right? I mean, they can be criticized as much, but you still have to be fair. When you're out in public, you're in the opposition running for office, you make promises based on the assumption of what you expect to be in a budget, or what you expect to be in the government's coffer, the government's purse. So based on that assumption, you put forward your plans. So if I'm telling you...
You think that applies in circuits? Everybody got somebody on the inside.
Yeah, but
and believe me, they know.
Yeah, but if you're telling me, right...
The IMF reports are there, they know.
Yeah, but
Will anybody fool you?
But Ms. Henry, let's be frank, right? If I'm telling you that in my house, I have 10 chairs, 10 TVs, and I have $50 million under my bed, you will make the assumption and believe that $50 million is under my, that's under my bed.
Stupid.
Right?
You got to be stupid.
No, but...
Number one, that kind of money will be in the bank.
True.
Number two, you send somebody to scout out the house.
Mm-hmm.
You hear me? I mean, we got to be real.
Yeah, but you can
you see, this is the fault of, I blame a lot of the economists. I am one, but I can't say no. I blame a lot of the people who are trained in these enterprises and these subjects.
But wouldn't it also
be...
But Ms. Henry,
because you have to report them to the IMF, and you have to report them to the ECCB, and you have to report them to the CDB.
Yeah, but Ms. Henry...
A lot of the ignorance that we're claiming is self-imposed. Do you hear me?
But Ms. Henry, wouldn't you also agree that it could come down to...
ignorance.
I wouldn't say partially
ignorance
that.
on the part of the hearers.
Well, partially that, but
with
the lack of free information flowing from governments and being able to access some of that information.
I said the information is there. I tell you also, when look, you see, we don't do research. I tell people, go to the IMF report. The tables are there, having the information. What is the debt to GDP ratio? Do you know? No.
I don't have that on hand
That's
with me
what
right now.
it's things that those are supposed to know.
No, we have the IMF report, right? I
They're
read
in there,
that.
you know.
But
search them out so when they come with a thing, even the media, we excuse them but at least you are being trained. Even the media, when they say certain things that can't be true, like for example, they said that they went and they were in deficit. Deficit on which account? Because that's a lie. You can have deficit on the current account, and then the money from the CBI will give you a surplus. Oh, we met a deficit, but then you turn around and you're giving away money? That is illogical.
Yeah, but but Ms. Henry, I wouldn't use the word lie in that sense, because if you're talking about two things here, at least one would be supportive that it's not a lie. But I understand what you're saying.
But you understand the rationale, right?
I understand your rationale, but my question would be...
Are they ignorant?
Not that, but...
Well, they must know, look, everybody in there is stupid.
Yeah, but...
And Dr. You said he had an economic council.
Yeah, but
what do they know?
But Ms. Henry, I think the issue would be, yes, we're talking about governments and stuff like that, but at what point, or concerningly, is breaking this information down? Because let's see, if I'm in opposition, I may not necessarily have experienced economists within my grouping, so I can only go off of what I'm hearing, one, and the information. But understanding the information is something different.
That is it. So I'm saying, and let me tell you, what we have around here, our people are very gullible. The very election, who could give the most, get the most votes. People are so self-absorbed that they don't even think. Now, the other day, I heard one of the advisors say that the poverty rate has gone from 15% from 15 to 22%. You heard that, right?
No.
Yeah, from 19. Now,
probably it was
explainable because you had, 2 years of COVID?
Yeah.
The poverty rate has increased by 50%.
Yeah, it probably would have, and they would have said that, but I didn't hear it, so that's what
check
I'm saying.
it out. One of his advisors, don't want to call the name, but he said it on the ear, that the poverty rate has gone from 15% in 2019 to 22% this year. And if you look at the policies push more people. So while, of course, they did some good, but when you come down to the man, the ordinary man on the street, he suffered the most because a lot of them were living off of the pap and the step and the whatever else. And you go in and you cut it by 50% or more. And having cut it, you proceed to lay off some more. Yeah, and then come December, some more going.
Yeah, but I think, but let's be frank, Ms. Henry. When you look at the program itself, and I think a lot of people understood that there were some people on the program who should not have been there.
Get them out, but when you start to take off the needy with all sorts of excuse, because go back to the promise. Now, they mend the program. Do you know about the mend that they had before?
I've heard about it. I know of it, but
I
can't tell you offhand.
It was not financed by the government. When either Colombia, another country was financing it, and it ended when the grant ended. I think there were 25 people or more, right? Let me say 100. It wasn't so many on it. Now, if you only have 100 people on it, then you can afford to give the 750 and the 1250. You understand what I'm saying? When you go in knowing that you got thousands already on the PAP, why go on the platform and say you're going to give what MEND used to give?
Yeah, but
when MEND was not a local program.
True, but I think again it goes back to the start of this discussion. I think it goes back to the start of this discussion. You make these promises based on an assumption of what you suspect or think might be there, and that's what people want to hear. You can promise that you're going to...
Not even football team does go into competition unless they observe the opposite. It don't happen. You're talking about you want a country and you're going in thinking. You're going into a government thinking. And he refused to give the numbers. Let's talk about the National Bank. He forgot to mention that the Central Bank had two. So you know that, right?
I didn't get that.
The Central Bank had a loss the year before the bank and the year with the bank. So what does that say for the Central Bank? Because he's insinuating that maybe somebody steal the money. They both made investment. I would say the bank overinvested.
Okay, Ms.
Because
Henry.
the market is very fluid.
Okay, Ms. Henry, 45 seconds, and then you can call back.
Yeah, to me, right, the people were lied to. And the poor people, and the worst part is that the economy, he said that we had the economic growth, I suppose of some. People out here looking for work. Up to now, the Minister of Investment can't find nothing, even local. A whole year and you can't find one investment to take some people off of the poverty line. Please, may the Lord help our country. And all of us need to pray for our leaders. They did not underestimate. They lied. And we bought it. So we are the ones who are to blame. We are the ones. You can't blame the Prime Minister. You bought it, line, hook and sinker. You didn't even stop to ask somebody who knows something the question. And this is where the journalists organization coming into play, You all have got to do your own research. Some of the questions you're asking him or the government, the information is available on international organizational program on their website. So maybe we need to go there first and then work backward. All right, then.
All right, thanks, caller. Yes, so that caller, said, it's basically suggesting that, the people need to be educated first in terms of making decisions. But one of the things I want to at least say, I would not say that governments lie. Governments explain, especially people who are in opposition, they say things based on the information that's given. It's not always easy to access information, I can tell you that. As somebody who's been practicing and continues to practice, it's not easy accessing information, especially public information. We know that the Freedom of Information legislation has been passed. We're not sure at this point if it has been officially gazetted and is in operation. But it's one thing, of people to urge the media to go and look for these information and all of that, go to international sources. But oftentimes, you have to wait long periods, in some instances, to get the information from international sources. I mean, a typical example, my colleague has been trying to get some information locally, and he's being directed to go to the actual heart to get the information. And as of right now, he's not been able to access that information at this point in time, right? So that's one of the issues that we have. And I think people who are in opposition as well, they also have that challenge as well. We go back to the phone lines and we hear from this caller. Caller, good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Mr. Abel. Only water problem. And this water problem didn't just start overnight. This water problem started about 25 years ago. Up to when the man by the name of Mr. Jerome Finney going around the Caribbean digging wells for people when he was alive, during the farmer administration, he was alive. Advice was given to the Prime Minister then, the former Prime Minister, to get his land back in what he used to do, what he knows best. Drilling for well, drilling for water. Bring in a truck. So we want you to dig for water here. We didn't have no bead in St. Kitts. Every one local farmer doing this thing here. Administration after administration blundered, and now the problem now lies within the hands of the present Prime Minister. And then when people coming on the radio and talking about this water source angel started today, now yesterday, years. For example, the same man Jerome Pinney, back in 1985, very first time I went Nevis, I walk among them so I could speak about it. Came up a brand new truck, came in from Canada. Somebody from the company that the truck was made came with the truck and taught Jerome Pinney to operate that said truck because the truck that Jerome Pinney used to operate before it wasn't the kind of digital farmer truck. Jerome Pinney then was being hired by NIA. We don't have X amount of wells being dug on St. Kitts. And the funny thing about it is this. Many of these young wells that were dug before got contaminated and they was not replaced. No replacement well was dug. They left the truck that we had here to sit down and rot. I'm telling you, because I work among these men. You have a man by the name of, I won't call his name as Collins in a rightful way. He was the water engineer.
Yeah,
his name is Mr. Rollins, Tim Rollins.
Okay, caller. Yeah,
You know?
just continue, but let's not call any names at this
Because
point.
I don't know, because, for example, right, people could go ask these persons.
Yeah, but
was there when Jerome Pinney was there working.
Yeah,
because
but
I want to give the right picture.
Yeah,
I want
yeah,
to be
but
looking in
caller,
the mirror. I want the people to be looking in the mirror and see what,
caller.
what it is.
Caller, yeah, I understand you want to
Okay,
make that point, right? But I'm just trying not to, right, not trying to, call any names right
what
now.
I am saying is this. Had those problems been solved many years ago, because, I'm telling you, me and Joe, man, the same man who used to operate the truck, who went on the Caribbean to teach people, to dig wells for people, he wanted to go back to church because we had a part of water services named Pump. He was responsible for digging wells. And all of a sudden, that was broken down and dismantled. That is where the water problem started. That's when it was started. So when people coming on the radio today and saying this and saying that with the water source, it ain't just come so. Turn into a guava. That is the problem. And then, I tell you, this thing is deep, A lot of money was wasted. The passport money was wasted. So, from 1984 up to 2008, no record about the money, Well, the country was just going on with deteriorating. A lot of things need to be fixed, For example, the desalination plant. What would you choose to decide to apply to get water and think it? A desalination plant, or we go back into what we had, which is a truck?
Yeah, but on that point, caller. But caller, on that point, right? I want to ask you a question. We have, and let's be frank, we're being affected by climate change. Right. Even if we dig new wells consistently, and the minister has said this frequently, whether at press conferences or on air or on his social media platform, right, that the issue with the water situation, whether it be on St. Kitts or Nevis, is that we're not getting the same level of rainfall to continue to replenish what we're taking out. So if we generate about 7 million gallons of water that's being used per day, that's not necessarily being replaced, right? So the reason why we're focusing on desalination is to ensure that the consistent level of water is there. So I think that's, so my question to you is, wouldn't you support that notion that if we don't have that consistent flow of rainfall, and based on climate change, that desalination would be the best solution?
I'll answer you this way. As much as climate change, when and how long does wind heal the out of water to send water into Bastion? That's when we source water from the mountain. When the water ain't that plentiful, right? The catchment down there full and stay running that heavy. That water now that runs the overflow is soaking in the ground. Water been soaking in the ground for how much years? Nobody has yet dug a well up there to extract the water from underground. So with climate change and no climate change, there is no excuse. No excuse. X amount of different intake. What was just described on St. Kitts, I refer to it as the riverbed. Under the riverbed is an X amount of water. We can't tell you something. If we keep beating St. Kitts, they're going to be here for a very, very long time.
But that's why...
Because we're going to want water for farming, we're going to want water for building houses, They want water to drink, and the animals don't want water to
But
drink.
that's the purpose of the desalination, caller. But we have. I'll give you 45
You look at
seconds.
it, so,
But
how far in the island, how far inland would the desalinated water go? Would it reach along the best? Would it reach up in the mountainous areas?
Well, you know those. Well, let me be frank, right, caller. And I think
That
you're
is-
raising.
No, listen to me. That is where the truck comes in. That's where the truck comes in, and we go and we drill up in those areas. We ain't want to be here.
I understand what you're saying, right? And
Because
those
I'll
are
tell you something, pertinent.
right?
For example, right, we did desalinated water, right?
Mhm.
Do you know the water bill going to go up? And do you know that we'll be paying bill and still the water bill going up?
Okay.
Yeah, really, that's so we have to eliminate one.
Yeah, I understand that, right,
Invest
caller?
the money in the desalinating plant. Let the citizens of the country decide where they're going to invest the money in.
Okay, so
it
caller,
should not be
caller.
left to the politicians alone.
Caller. Yeah, I understand what you're saying, right? And you're raising some pertinent questions, but I have to take a break. But before I take a break, I have to say this, right? Hold on. I'm just going to say this. You've raised some pertinent questions that I think personally needs to be answered, right? Surrounding, you asked whether or not the desalinated water is going to run all the way to Date Bay or wherever it is, right? And I think what I would recommend for them to do, because I'm only sitting in here on WINNFM, I'd recommend them to try to get either the water engineer or the minister to come on and try to address some of those issues.
I tell you, Alain, the farmer engineer, that's why I tell a call his name, but the call is in good faith.
Yeah, I understand that, but I don't want to, call people who I don't think.
call the slanderous thing on the radio.
So,
nobody.
But thanks for your input, caller. I have to acknowledge our partners at this point. So take care. Yeah. So yes, we have to acknowledge our partners who made this program possible today, and then we'll continue with the discussions when we return here.
It's TDC for me, TDC for we. Neighbor, partner, your family. The best is yet to come, believe me. Moving forward, moving with. Hey, TDC serve the nation with the best customer experience. TDC, you are the one for we. Happy anniversary. Together we succeed, building on strong community, pressing on forward to our destiny. One love, one family. Together we succeed. Let the whole world see. Yes, this is 50.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib. It's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
People make the world go
And welcome back to Inside the News here on WINNFM. I'm German Abel, sitting in today. I'm in the hot seat for Inside the News. We're just looking at some of the major issues and topics and news that made the headlines that made the news rather through the week, but locally, regionally, and internationally. Right? We, at least me, I try to move away from the politics and get to the bottom of the story itself and how it's impacting the people in St. Kitts and Nevis. And we will go directly to the phone lines now and hear from this caller. Caller, good afternoon. We lost that caller, but yes, I try to go beyond the headlines and get people to understand how whatever it is that's happening in the news is impacting them. Move away from the politics of everything. We can talk politics anytime, but how is this issue impacting people? Caller, good afternoon. Caller?
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon.
Yes. Parties make promises around election time. People listen to them. They also look at the record of the government in office at that time, and based on those two things, they would normally make decisions on who they want to govern them. Okay, and the cycle continues usually every 5 years, unless, like in the last election, something egregious or out of the way happens, and we have an early poll. I think we should let the process take its course. You know, the government, if the government messes up and don't deliver, they will suffer the consequences in the next cycle. Simple. Okay? If the government does not have the common sense to do an evaluation, an assessment from time to time, a year is a good time. Yes, and following year would also be another good time. If you don't have the common sense to do that, and not do that in a pie-in-the-sky way, do that in a really objective way to see where they measure up in terms of their promises, and not so much in terms of campaigning. The campaign has finished, but you have to be looking at what you promised in your manifesto and making sure that you're on track to deliver. Okay? Because if they don't do the necessary course corrections, then next election they'll suffer the consequences. All right? Now, of course, in between that, the electorate should observe and do their own assessments, etc. And if they're not feeling that the government is delivering, they have a right to speak up and make their voices heard. And the government, if they're smart, would listen, okay? Not just follow on doing the same things or looking back to what the last government did, but making sure that the electorate is satisfied with the current situation, okay? Otherwise, again, consequences will follow. Now, the opposition gave the current government a D. Well, that's fine. That's not a passing grade, as was said before. But in looking at that, you should also look at the performance of the opposition in the intervening period in that year. In my estimation, they deserve an F, even lower grade than what they prepared to give the government. For in that year, they should have been holding government accountable. They, in my opinion, they've been very dysfunctional. As a matter of fact, the opposition seemed very much divided. You know, I don't think part of it understands its role. The role of in a parliamentary democracy is not to function as a partner of the government. You know, as much as people like collaboration and partnership and all those nice things, that is not the role of an opposition in a parliamentary democracy. It is there to provide an alternative to alternative solutions, to keep the government accountable, to keep the government in check power-wise, okay, because there's always this tendency to abuse power when you're in government, okay? And so we expect the government not to be hand in hand with we expect the opposition not to be hand in hand with the government, but to keep them accountable, all right? A democracy needs a vibrant opposition, okay? Not one that is dysfunctional, all right? And otherwise, if we have an opposition that essentially just works hand in hand with the government, what we have there is not a parliamentary democracy, but a benevolent dictatorship. And we don't want no kind of dictatorship, right? We want all opinions to contend, all ideas to contend, because I'm sure the government will be the first to tell you that they don't have all the answers. And so they need alternatives to what they're doing. The need to be kept in check, because the system, you can have all kinds of systems. You can have 22 new bills passed in the House, right, to try to improve things. But we know that politicians always find some loophole somewhere. And so we absolutely need an opposition to keep them in check. And so it's good that the current opposition, at least one part of it, has found its voice and is willing to challenge the government. Hopefully the other segment of it would also find its voice, because it's pretty much the opposition has been pretty much on the back foot of late, right? And that in itself, that's like giving the government a pass. The government, when given a pass, is more likely to abuse it. It's counterintuitive for any government to try to make adjustments when it's not necessary. Okay, and the opposition makes sure that it's on the side of people who have issues. Okay, whereas the government might tend to overlook them and say, well, this is what we just look at their manifesto and say, well, this is what we promised, whether it's working or not. This is what we're going to do, full speed ahead, my way or the highway. Well, the opposition is supposed to hold that in check. Listen to the people, just as the government should be listening to the people. Listen to what's happening out there, what people are saying, the murmurings, the misgivings that people may have, and challenge the government to do better. Okay, I don't think that the opposition was performing in its role for the past 12 months. Like I said, hopefully that changes, and we have something better. I think that's what we're aiming for.
Okay, Carl, I just want to ask you one quick question before I let you go. At what point, and do you believe that governments, including this current administration, should come out to the public and say, we promised you to complete X amount of projects or get these projects implemented within the first 90 days to a year, but we did not get them accomplished. Yes, we acknowledge that, but we're working to get them implemented, these and others that we promised in our manifesto, implemented over the next 4 years. And at what point do governments come back to the people and say, hey, we don't think that we can get all of these projects completed or all that we promised completed within our first term? At what point, rather than later on in the last year, just before elections?
Well, generally, governments tend to deliver the bitter medicine, what they think they might need, earlier clock. So hopefully by the time the next election cycle comes around, it works. Okay? So while we understand that government is probably likely to hold the line, so to speak, and not admit to errors or difficulties, okay, they might still recognize that there are and introduce corrective measures, which, like I said, they hope will work. That actually, that was one of the things I noticed about the assessment of the last year by the government. Okay, it was all rosy. Well, I don't know. I don't think everybody thinks that it's rosy. And I even venture to think that a large part, while there have been successes and achievements, there are things to be done. There are things to be done even faster. And so everybody is not really hunky-dory with what's going on. Okay? And so I would expect that in the address, certainly, for instance, in national address, if it were that the corrective measures necessitate some really bitter medicine or some hard pills to swallow, that even while you tout the successes and the achievements, you will prepare the nation for whatever corrective measures may be there to come. I didn't hear that. So when you ask at what point do you do that, I would have said that certainly after a year, that you tell, while you tout your achievement, you tell the nation what you were not able to achieve, why you weren't able to achieve them, and how you plan to in the future, okay, rather than leave it hanging. So a year is a good time. Certainly the anniversaries are good times to make those kind of reassessments. If you notice in a lot of government, for instance, do things like cabinet reshuffles and so on, when they do the assessment and realize things are not going as they should. It's just that in recent times in our electoral system, it's been a tight wire in the sense that any change, the results of the elections are such, they are so close that it's almost like walking on glass. You can't make changes unless you're prepared to have some really dire consequences as a result of those changes. So essentially, for instance, the ministerial posts, etc., would continue. If, for instance, there was a reshuffle in the last administration, they probably would still have been in power because things might have been done differently. Similarly, while it's not something that ministers generally like, the prime minister sometimes has to put a cabinet reshuffle in place to make sure that the priorities are right, that things continue as they should, because let's face it, there are strong ministers and there are weaker ministers. I know they like to talk about, well, the A-team where everybody are experts. Well, that might be true, but everybody might not be an expert at managing a ministry, a department. Might be experts in their own right, but there are strong ministers and there are let's put it this way, less strong ministers. And if you have a particular priority, you certainly want to throw your strong minister at that to make sure that comes to the fore, right? So to answer your question, first of all, you have to face the fact that you may not be able to achieve all you promised, right? I think that it begins with that realization, because I don't think there's that realization yet, right? So you first realize that, well, you can't fulfill everything, and the next thing would be, if I make changes, would I be able to? And once you determine that, whatever medicine there is, whether it's for the electorate in terms of whatever slowdown in the social programs, more taxes for the business sector, or whatever it is, okay? You bring that in, preferably earlier clock, so that they take effect, and by the time election cycle comes around, everything is fine, okay? Or, like I said, if it's for the your ministerial colleagues, if it's necessitated, then you make some changes in portfolios, okay? Probably shift some because some of the portfolios are very, very heavy, okay? And therefore, it's probably necessary to have, for instance, with the Prime Minister's portfolios, those are extremely heavy. Health, finance, national security. You know, he may be handling it fine just now, but if things change, then you have to be prepared to take the hard decision and appoint somebody strong in the party, in the one that may be falling short in. Okay, those kinds of adjustments that can be made. But I'm afraid that in our situation, there isn't that inclination. We're small, and so changes like that have a big impact on the political situation. It's not like we had 100 ministers to choose from. Okay, So just making small adjustments can cause really huge outcomes, and so that has to be looked at. But I always thought I've heard you ask that question before. I always thought it was a good question, but one which most politicians don't like to face. That is why perhaps you're not getting the answers, straight up answers that you want, because people don't like to consider what those kinds of things. They like everything to be nice and perfect, and in the real world, things just aren't nice and perfect, and people make promises that they can't keep, and you have to deal with the fallout from this, So that's my point of view.
All right, thanks, caller.
Okay.
Thanks for that insight. That caller gave us a detailed insight from his perspective in terms of exactly how he views the entire topic of governments. And I mean, it's not just this administration. You must give the administration kudos for what it has done thus far, what it continues to do. But yes, we must acknowledge that they've not done all that they promised. And this has been time and time again, administrations all across the world, they've been, not achieving some of what they set out in the first year. But, you give them time to continue to roll that out in terms of their approach to governance and stuff like that. But we have to acknowledge our partners one more time before we exit the program.
We're different. We're 98.9. 98.9. Win FM.
50,000?
50,000?
$50,000? Win big with TDC. Win up to $50,000 cash in the TDC Mega Rewards Mega Raffle. To enter, you must be a Mega Rewards member or sign up to TDC Mega Rewards Loyalty Program. Shop at our TDC retail stores or online at shoptdcgroup.com to receive one entry for every $250 spent. Draws take place from July to November. Win $10,000 every month with your entry rolled over so you can win and win even more.
Yes, this is 50.
Terms and conditions apply.
Maybe it's the way the brilliant gold liquid reflects our sunshine, or how the bright blue of its label mirrors the clear Caribbean skies overhead. Maybe it's the fresh, crisp taste of this beastly cold beer on a scorching hot day. Maybe it's even the way it brings us all together. But one thing is for sure, Carib is very much a part of who we are wherever we're from in the Caribbean. Carib, it's the way we play. Drink responsibly.
And welcome back to Inside the News. I'm German Abel, sitting in today. We received a police press release. Sadler's armed robbery under police investigation. And I'm thinking that the people upstairs in the newsroom would probably have the full details in the news tonight. But just to give you a bit, on August 11th, the anti-gang unit of the Royal St. Christopher Nevis Police Force responded to reports of an armed robbery at the Good Life supermarket in Sadler's. Two armed masked men, assailants entered the aforementioned establishment, and they held the cashier at the time at gunpoint, and they assaulted him based on the videos that I've seen. And the good thing is probably minor injuries at this point, but police are probing that. Full details, I'm guessing, would be on the night's newscast tonight. And we go back to the phone line as we wind down the program. Well, we missed that caller. Yes, so we were just discussing a lot of what's making the news locally, regionally, and internationally. And as we wind down the program, the government has acknowledged its 1 year in office. They've reached that milestone. The Prime Minister has been outlining some of their achievements. I know they had a town hall recently, and some of the others. We'll go back to the phone lines before we wrap. Caller, good afternoon.
Yes, greetings for you, my brother. You hear me?
Yeah, I'm hearing you, caller.
Okay.
You can keep it
all right,
tight.
How the term, we hearing timing and we hearing what the term of administration at that time? Is it 5 years?
Yes, it's 5 years.
Once it goes uninterrupted without any, them things just go, like what take place in last election. 5 years is the term.
Yes.
Okay, so that means 2 years and a half is half of the term, and a year and a quarter is quarter of the term.
Basically.
All right?
Yeah.
Eh?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Well, when we look on that, we say the administration that is in, they are even below the quarter of their term, right? It being just a year. So, what we are saying still is, them have a long way to go in terms of the 5 years. So, we are saying, just, echoing with others and saying, give thanks for what being accomplished so far. And wish us all the best going forward, because the work is enough and it concerns all of we, Everyone have the issues, we personally have issues that we'd like to see it being done in the first quart, or the half, or even the first quart, An issue that come to mind is the concerning our environment, the nastiness that we see, that we know can be arrested if we tackle it the right and proper way. That is a matter of urgency for us, but it is still a work in progress. In the process, and we just people who are in charge of that department, like who comes to mind is the Princess Lady Clark, the Honorable Minister, and the office there, the Constituency Empowerment Office, which is living at the control. We are looking forward for them to make it happen soonest, We already see the need for as explained for collaboration in ministries, for there to be a synergies of ministries to make this happen, because it is a problem that we can't just tackle it from one way, we have to tackle it in all the ways, implement policies, etc., and get it how it ought to be. So we are not, there's time. The point is that there is time. The present administration is less than quarter of their 5 years term, and the journey continues, The journey continues. The point there that the last caller made, I wanted to express something on that, but it gone out of my head. But if you remember another program, give thanks for the time, my brother.
All right, thanks, caller. And I think that was our last caller for today. We are just about out of time for Inside the News today. We were looking at the major issues impacting St. Kitts and Nevis regionally and internationally. The St. Kitts and Nevis Labour Party has achieved its first year in office, and we've been hearing mixed reviews. Some of what the public is saying, they've not achieved all of what they promised in their manifesto for the first year in office. The People's Action Movement has given the government a D to an F in some instances, while others have barely been supportive of the government in terms of what they've accomplished through the first year in office, while others are saying we need to give them more time. Not everything can be accomplished within the first year of office, while they're also doing some investigations and all those other stuff while they're carrying out the work, But again, we're out of time for today's edition of Inside the News. Yes, we spoke about that. We touched a bit on the Antiguans who went to space. We also spoke about the women who actually rode across the Atlantic and were successful, as well as the issues with Niger. You know, they had a coup, and WASCO and the other West African bodies are, you know, calling for some truce and some peace to get the matter resolved. Then we had the issue internationally as well, with former President Donald Trump going to court. But as usual, I'm German Abel. Do enjoy the rest of your weekend. A new week starts tomorrow, and just enjoy and stay safe. Goodbye for now.